Hey everyone, Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton here. I've got major news on the Judicial Watch lawsuit filed on behalf of Ashli Babbitt's family, her estate, against the federal government, a $30 million wrongful death lawsuit over her outrageous and needless shooting death. And here's the video in case you haven't seen it. And if you haven't seen it, you should see it again because it highlights the outrage of her death. So I still can't believe she was killed. I just can't believe that Lieutenant Byrd shot her like he did. Really reckless and dangerous shooting. I think it was criminal in nature. But I can announce that the lawsuit, the parties have agreed to settle in principle. And so what that means is that within a few weeks, it's going to be finalized, and there will be a key development, a key historic victory in part in terms of Ashli Babbitt justice. Her family deserves justice. The American people deserve accountability for what happened. And I believe settling this lawsuit, as it is going to happen, it's going to happen within a few weeks, is going to be a significant development in that regard. And the way the settlement came about, or at least the public nature of the settlement came about because there was a separate issue related to legal fees that had to be considered by a court today. A temporary restraining order was requested by a former lawyer for Ashli Babbitt's family. So we all had to rush into court at 2 p.m. And during that hearing, the government confirmed, the federal government, and obviously Judicial Watch's attorneys who represent Ashli Babbitt's estate, her surviving husband, Aaron Babbitt, confirmed that a settlement had been reached in principle. Now, what happens next is the terms need to be figured out. It needs to be finalized, right? You have to sign something, and that document has to be agreed to. But great victory for the rule of law, as far as I'm concerned. A great victory in terms of justice and accountability. The court hearing was a little more exciting than it needed to be because the court was angry about something, and it was really an unpleasant court experience. But that information came out today. I can't provide much more in the way of detail, but I want to highlight how important Judicial Watch's work has been in terms of getting justice for Ashli. Again, the case is going to be settled, the wrongful death lawsuit. It's been settled in principle. We just have to sign, the parties need to sign it. And I have to give credit to the Trump administration for creating the circumstances, or helping create the circumstances that led to the settlement. And of course, I have to give credit to Judicial Watch's excellent legal team that pursued this case for years. And not only did we file the lawsuit, but we had separate and apart litigation and FOIA work that exposed virtually everything we know about the Ashli Babbitt death, or her killing. The way her shooter was treated with kid gloves, the fact that he was given special treatment. Really, there was no serious criminal investigation as to that shooting. He was allowed to stay for months, and Judicial Watch exposed this at Andrews Air Force Base, or Joint Base Andrews as it's now called, in a hotel room for months at your expense. And poor Ashli, the Biden administration, when we filed this lawsuit, did nothing but oppose it and was trying to get it thrown out in large measure. And obviously things changed with the Trump administration. So knock on wood, right? Nothing's final till it's final. This case is going to settle. And I highlighted the importance of it in what I thought was a pretty emotional moment at CPAC, not this year, but last year. Let's run that speech.
You know, I got very upset again recently about January 6th. I was rewatching the video of the needless killing of Ashli Babbitt, the Air Force veteran, shot for no good reason by Lieutenant Michael Byrd of the U.S. Capitol Police. Now, I've watched those videos. I can't believe he just shot her dead like that. I just can't believe it. And few in this corrupt city give a rat's tail about that awful shooting. But millions of Americans care. And her family cares. I think her mom, Mickey, is still here at CPAC. Is Mickey here? Well, give her a round of applause anyway. God bless her. And that's why I'm so pleased Judicial Watch just filed a $30 million wrongful death lawsuit against the U.S. government. On behalf of the family of Ashli Babbitt, as our lawsuit states, the facts speak truth. Ashli was ambushed when she was shot by Lieutenant Byrd. Multiple witnesses at the scene yelled, "You just murdered her." Judicial Watch is celebrating its 30th anniversary this year. I tell you what, if it takes 30 more years to get justice for Ashli, that will be time well spent.
So that was a great moment, and of course, Ashli's mom, Mickey, was there, as I highlighted, in the crowd, and it doesn't necessarily come across as well in the video, but to have that ovation for as long as it went on for her mom was just great to see. And Aaron Babbitt has been steadfast, her husband, who lost Ashli, in demanding justice for Ashli. And what an honor it's been to represent Ashli's cause in federal court in this regard. So, as I said, the settlement of the lawsuit has been reached in principle, which means that the specific terms need to be inked and signed. But we're looking forward to getting it done in the next few weeks. And I want to not only thank our lawyers, Robert Stick, who was leading the team in terms of litigating here, but our investigators, obviously, the whole team at Judicial Watch. There's all sorts of folks I could be thanking. But I also want to thank our supporters, because we can't do it without you. There'd be no justice for Ashli. We wouldn't know what happened that day if not for the support of you, dear Judicial Watch supporters. So I want to thank you for that, because you deserve credit in part for getting this done. So I can't give you some of the key details about how much it's going to be or other details of the settlement. In fact, I wasn't planning to talk about it today. We weren't planning to publicize the settlement until it was finalized, but we were required to provide an update to the court due to the circumstances of the process today, and that's what we did, and that's what the Justice Department, the Trump Justice Department, did as well. So there you have it, straight from the horse's mouth. The Ashli Babbitt wrongful death lawsuit is going to settle. It's been settled in principle. All we need to do is sign it, and finalize it, and we'll have taken a key step for justice and accountability as a result. So just great news, and obviously it shows you that leadership matters. A change in the Justice Department leadership, a change in Oval Office leadership, that matters. And we have justice because President Trump is in office, because the Justice Department is run by people who understand justice is important in this regard. So I'm thankful for that. But, you know, knock on wood, let's get it done, and I'll give you the key updates and further details on it when I can. So in the meantime, God bless you and God bless America. I tell you, great news. So what's happening in D.C. these days? It's more of the same. Judicial coups against President Trump, escalation of lawfare against him personally, and kind of a go slow approach, seemingly, from some of the deep state agencies I'm concerned about. Sometimes they do the right thing. Other times I'm pushing them to do more of the right thing and get it done more quickly. And the left is apoplectic about the president's ability or desire and action to remove dangerous foreign nationals who are here illegally, and foreign nationals generally who are here illegally, from these United States. And you have court after court getting in the way and interfering with that process, not in a way, in my view, that's lawful or appropriate, but one that's purely political. And in the meantime, the president is just pushing back where he can. His representatives are pushing back where they can. I don't know if you saw, I don't think we're going to play the clip. I don't think we have time for Stephen's clip today, but Stephen Miller was doing some excellent work today. And Tom Holman, great work explaining and puncturing one of the big lies. Let's go to the clip 14 on his briefing at the White House.
On Friday, a federal judge who was appointed by President Trump said a 2-year-old American citizen child had been sent to Honduras with the mother, who was deported. But the judge said, quote, there was no meaningful process. So again, this is another similar situation and dynamic. Shouldn't there be special care when these deportation cases involve small American-born children?
Well, first of all, I disagree with the judge. There was due process. That female had due process at great taxpayer expense and was ordered by an immigration judge after those hearings. So she had due process. Again, this is parenting 101. You can decide to take that child with you, or you can decide to leave the child here with a relative or another spouse. Having a U.S. citizen child doesn't make you immune from our laws of the country. American families get separated every day by law.
I mean, the left is crazy. They run around the room, proverbially speaking, with complaint after complaint, with fake crisis after fake crisis, fake news after fake news. First it's the fake news about the Maryland man, and this week it was fake news about evil Trump deporting American citizen children. What happened was the children were, their parents were non-citizen illegals who were being deported. So should the position have been that they shouldn't have been deported? Should the position have been that the children should have been forced to remain here in the United States and the parents couldn't take them with them? That's what Tom Holman is referencing. But the left keeps on pushing and pushing these fake narratives, and the courts keep on buying into them time and time again. Look at this quote from, I guess I detailed something a Vermont judge did in related to immigration. Let's go to tweet number 9. Yeah, this is helpful because it reminds me. A leftist Obama judge launched a political attack on the Trump administration as he ordered the release of a Hamas-defending foreign national set to be deported. The Vermont federal judges defended the foreign nationals who support terrorism and suggest they can't ever be deported by Trump because it's just like, quote, the Red Scare, which is a term the left uses to belittle the defense of America from communism. There's no doubt that the person that this Vermont federal judge, appointed by Obama, ordered release was involved in supporting Hamas. And the Secretary of State found his presence to be unacceptable to the interests of the United States. A basic application of the law as it relates to immigration left to his discretion. And what did this Vermont federal judge do? This Obama judge ordered his release despite the finding of Marco Rubio. These decisions not only undermine the separation of powers and constitutionalism, but they endanger the public safety because these folks are out there promoting the worst of the worst in terms of terrorism, attacks on Jews, and etc. But they want to bring in the so-called Maryland man who's an MS-13 gangbanger, and they'll break every constitutional norm to do so. And Marco Rubio, President Trump had a cabinet hearing or a cabinet meeting this week to celebrate his 100 days in office. And Marco Rubio, he pushed back strongly on these judges. Let's go to, I think it's clip 16.
You brought up El Salvador in your remarks. Have you been in touch with El Salvador about returning Abrego Garcia as a formal request from this administration to me?
Well, I would never tell you that. And you know who else I'll never tell? A judge. Because the conduct of our foreign policy belongs to the President of the United States and the executive branch, not some judge. So we will conduct foreign policy appropriately if we need to. But I'll never discuss it. And no one will ever make us discuss it because that's how foreign policy works.
Yeah, that's how foreign policy works. And what's going on with the left and the Democratic Party? They're sending their top leadership down to Congress or to El Salvador to go meet with this guy. And they get asked tough questions. They react like the vicious leftists they are. Listen to Ilhan Omar respond to this reporter asking her a question about this conduct.
Congresswoman Omar, I'm Miles Morrell with the Daily Caller News Foundation. Do you think more of your Democratic colleagues should be traveling to El Salvador to advocate on behalf of Abrego Garcia?
I think you should fuck off. Yeah, that's
I'm sorry, what, Congresswoman?
Fuck off.
Who should?
You.
Why me?
We're not taking any questions right now, but here you go.
Yeah.
A member of Congress speaking like that. And it was a politely asked question. She could have just said no comment, I don't want to talk to you, thank you. Instead it was F off twice to the young reporter. But of course, they keep on escalating, and there's got to be accountability for the abuses. And my frustration is the FBI and the Justice Department I haven't seen much evidence that there's a serious criminal investigation going on the abuses targeting Trump. And frankly, the FBI seems to have been left largely alone. I mean, there hasn't even been a Doge-like examination of the FBI, at least as best we can tell publicly. And every time we mention this, the pushback from the supporters of the FBI and FBI leadership is, oh, we can't tell you what we're doing, trust us. Well, we need something more than just trust, and we've been told that repeatedly when it comes to justice and accountability for deep state efforts to destroy our republic, and we haven't gotten it. And in my experience, unless we see something actually is happening, it's rarely happening. It doesn't mean nothing good has happened. It just means these issues, in my view, aren't treated with the importance and the emergency nature which they require. The FBI and the Justice Department spent the better part of the last decade trying to destroy our constitutional republic, up until January 20th, 2025, right? And has there been accountability? People have been fired, good. Has there been a serious criminal investigation over the conclusion and a grand conspiracy against the republic? I don't think there has been. And and frankly, I don't think the FBI is capable of doing it. Even if Cash, and I'm sure Cash wants to do it, I don't know what's stopping him. I'm sure Pam Bondi, in theory, wants to do it too. I'm not sure what's stopping them from kind of embracing it in a public way. But this Cash put out this tweet, and this is how I responded to it. Let's put up the, which tweet is it? Number 5. So Cash issued this tweet, FBI recruiting news. I'm thrilled to report the FBI recently hit our goal of 2,500 new intelligence analyst applications in just 1 week, half the time expected. They're great men all over the country who want to be part. We're just getting started. Thank you for our teams working hard to support the mission. And as I responded, I suggest the FBI be treated like USAID or the Department of Education and should be largely shut down. I mean, he wasn't hired, and there was no expectation that we would be trying to recruit more people into the FBI. I'm not quite sure what the audience is for this. And I like cash, but this is not what people are expecting, at least many Americans. They want justice and accountability. You know, they raided Trump's home, the FBI did, with the help of the Justice Department, obviously. And it's not just Trump who was abused. They came to my house to give me a subpoena. I was just a witness. They didn't raid my home, but they issued a... Who wants the FBI coming to their front door? Do you? And if you know it's because of retaliation, if you know there was no good faith reason to do it, where's the accountability for it? Where's the accountability for what happened in Mar-a-Lago? Still waiting. In the meantime, you know, the whole gang covered up the corruption at the Biden White House. His corruption, his dementia, his cognitive challenges. Trump blew the whistle on, I don't know if you saw this tweet or this video segment of an interview he had with ABC News. Let's go to number 15.
Do you think the reputation of the United States has gone down under your presidency?
No, I think it's gone way up, and I think we're a respected country again. We were laughed at all over the world. We had a president that couldn't walk up a flight of stairs, couldn't walk down a flight of stairs, couldn't walk across a stage without falling. We had a president that was grossly incompetent. You knew it, I knew it, and everybody knew it, but you guys didn't want to write it because you're fake news.
All right. Thank you.
And by the way, ABC is one of the worst, I have to be honest with you.
Trump is just so on it. And he's absolutely right. The media is awful. They support the invaders, the violent, murderous, raping, illegal alien criminals, attack Trump for wanting to deport them. They support every abuse that he and promoted all the smears and abuses of Trump, covered up for the Biden gang 6 ways to Sunday. And they want to be taken seriously now? No way, Jose. No way. They're already prepping to go after Trump again. This left-wing congressman issued this video, and, you know, everyone's, you know, I see, you know, people are going to mock his accent or his look, and that's not the point. The point is, he's concocting and he's pursuing the leftist effort to pursue or to impeach Trump again. They are never going to stop trying to impeach or jail Trump. This is why it's important that the FBI be held accountable so they can never do it again, that the Justice Department be held accountable so they can never do it again. And there are several ways to do that, and I think the most effective way, which has rarely, if ever, been done, which is actually criminally investigate and prosecute people responsible. So what's the left's response? We'll impeach Trump again. Let's go to that, where's that tweet? Impeaching Trump, number 20.
This is Congressman Shri Thanedar. Donald Trump has already done real damage to our democracy, but defying a unanimous 9-0 Supreme Court ruling, that has to be the final straw. It's time we impeach Donald J. Trump. The wrongfully deported Kilmer Garcia must be allowed to return and receive due process. Today, I introduced a resolution to impeach Donald J. Trump, outlining 7 articles of impeachment.
That's where the Democrats are. You don't think they're going to impeach him? They will impeach him as soon as they're able. And it doesn't matter whether they get the Senate to convict him or not. It's the impeachment. It's the process to undermine him and his supporters. And so, even as I believe the Justice Department and the FBI take this go slow approach, Judicial Watch just continues with the heavy lifting. And, you know, we've highlighted, and our important work in Fulton County, exposing and forcing Fani Willis to admit to the collusion she engaged in with the Pelosi January 6th Get Trump operation. And Congress didn't do it. The Justice Department didn't expose it. Obviously, they were run by Biden at the time. And the media didn't do it. It was Judicial Watch's heavy lifting that did it. Let's run that video.
Major legal news. A Judicial Watch lawsuit exposed Fani Willis for false claims and hidden documents. Willis is the Georgia Democratic prosecutor who attempted unprecedented prosecutions of Donald J. Trump for disputing the 2020 election. The Judicial Watch lawsuit caught Willis red-handed hiding records showing collusion on her prosecutions of President Trump and other Americans with the House January 6th committee established by Nancy Pelosi and her prosecution of President Trump. In August 2023, Judicial Watch filed a public records request to Fani Willis's Fulton County District Attorney Office for communications with Special Counsel Jack Smith and the U.S. House January 6th Committee over their anti-Trump targeting efforts. Willis claimed to have no responsive records. Doubting this, Judicial Watch sued. After several non-searches, one court order, and at least one actual search of unknown thoroughness, Willis revised her answer to, in essence, "I do have records, but you can't have them." In response, a state court judge ordered that all 212 pages of records be handed over to the court for review. Fani Willis's office was also ordered to explain under oath how the initial search for records was conducted. The court also ordered Willis's operation to compensate Judicial Watch for nearly $22,000 in attorney's fees. According to Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton, Willis simply can't be trusted to come clean on her office's political collusion with the Pelosi January 6th committee to get Trump. And she will face more accountability thanks to Judicial Watch's persistence. Because no one is above the law.
So, we're still waiting. I think we're still waiting on the court to get back to us on the issue of what records can possibly be released by Fani Willis. But as that video highlighted, that we just did phenomenal work. And I know I'm president of Judicial Watch, so I may be a little bit biased, but I'm impressed. I'm impressed. We have the Ashli Babbitt settlement. We've exposed so much of what we know about the corruption targeting Trump, Biden corruption through FOIA, you name it. And of course, we've now exposed this lawlessness, lies, and cover-up by a very powerful official in Georgia who's been harassing Trump and many other American citizens in a way that's wildly abusive. So just great work all around. And it's been a busy week, as you can see here at Judicial Watch. I was at the White House this week. I think we have a picture of me standing outside there we are. I was there the other morning for some Judicial Watch business. I can't tell you what it was, but I advanced the ball, I like to think, on behalf of Judicial Watch in some way. And it was good to be at the White House. President Biden, for whatever reason, never invited me to the White House, nor did any of his team. I don't know why. I mean, he should have. But they're so hardcore left, they don't want to engage in any coalition work. But the Obama people even invited us to the White House once. Did you know that? I know that's it's a story worth recounting because it's in I forget which book, Judicial Watch book it's in, one of my books, but I describe it in one of the books. And that's a reason for you to get all of the Judicial Watch books, because of stories like that. So back during the end of the Bush administration, beginning of the Obama administration, we had been suing for records of White House visitors. So the White House visitors at that time were all subject to FOIA. And the Bush people really didn't like the fact that we were exposing their visitors. And rather than, I don't know, just deal with the fact that transparency sometimes means having to tell people things you prefer them not to know about, they suggested and changed the list to make them, quote, White House documents not subject to disclosure under FOIA. So as a result, we couldn't get access to them under FOIA, long story short. And I think we sued, or were thinking about suing after they changed their legal position on that. But then the Obama gang came in. And so we were talking about suing, or maybe they got word we were going to sue. I forget, it's a long time now. But we got an invitation to the White House from Norm Eisen, who was the ethics czar at the time. And you may know Mr. Eisen now as a notorious anti-Trump litigator and leader of the conspiracy against Trump. And Eisen invited us in. Of course, we went. You know, you get invited to the White House, you go. And Eisen said, you know, we've got this deal to release the documents publicly, but not under FOIA. We're just going to voluntarily disclose them. And we thought, well, why don't you just release them under FOIA? And, you know, we think that's not the appropriate approach. We think they should be covered by FOIA. And they said we should support them. And what he said was, you say good things about us, we'll say good things about you. And I remember thinking, what is this, like a mafia meeting here? I mean, why would you threaten that? Because the mirror of that is, you say bad things about us, we'll say bad things about you. So this was a senior White House official telling us that during the Obama administration. So what was our response? Well, we said thank you, we appreciated the meeting, and then we left, and then we sued. And eventually the records were found to be not disclosable under FOIA. So they kind of, you know, the Bush and Obama people eventually won in that regard. It shows you that we had to battle both parties for the transparency. So that's a kind of an interesting story, isn't it? So I digressed, but forgive me. But it's worth talking about. Now I just dropped everything here. Hold on a second. So for the record, that was the only White House meeting I had in which I was threatened by a government official during the Obama administration. So it's not just Washington in which Judicial Watch where Judicial Watch is active. Where there's corruption and abuse, Judicial Watch will sue wherever we can under law. And one of the big things being pushed by the left are reparations, the topic of reparations, where they want to provide monies for perceived wrongs or actual wrongs of the past based on race, which generally is unconstitutional. You can't give out tax money based on race, based on generalized theories of discrimination in the past, or in the case of the reparations movement, where they talk about slavery being the basis for reparations. Now in Evanston, Illinois, they suggested to try to wedge reparations through the system that alleged discrimination back in the middle of the century was a basis for reparations now for people only who were black and who fit other qualifications, but the key one, that they had to be black. And it's wildly unconstitutional, and we filed a class action civil rights lawsuit against Evanston, and there's a big court hearing on it next week. And here's a description of the lawsuit in one of Judicial Watch's educational videos. Do you know which one it is, guys, or I have to call it out? It should be at the end of the list.
The left is obsessed with race-based reparations. Leftists use reparations and other handouts to redistribute wealth to favored groups, purportedly to remedy systemic racism and historical inequalities. The nation's first race-based reparations program was created by the city of Evanston, Illinois. In 2021, the Chicago suburb began earmarking what would become $20 million to pay $25,000 to persons who identify as Black or African American. It began approving cash payments 2 years later. Called the City of Evanston Local Reparations Restorative Housing Program, the scheme purports to remedy housing discrimination in Evanston and explicitly conditions eligibility on race. Applicants need only show that they identify as Black or African American and that they or a Black or African American ancestor lived in Evanston at any time between 1919 and 1969 and were at least 18 years old at the time. Applicants need not prove that they or their ancestors suffered any actual discrimination by Evanston. The children, grandchildren, and even the great-grandchildren of persons who lived in Evanston as many as 106 years ago can receive a payment. Whites, Hispanics, Asians, or anyone identifying as anything other than Black or African American need not apply. Renowned economist Dr. Thomas Sowell describes demands for reparations as a stroke of genius to keep Blacks separated from other Americans and an aggrieved constituency to support Black leaders in politics, organizations, and movements. In 2024, Judicial Watch filed a federal civil rights lawsuit challenging the program on behalf of individuals who would be eligible to receive a $25,000 payment but for their race. The lawsuit argues that the program violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. This provision makes treating people differently based on their race presumptively unconstitutional. Judicial Watch filed its lawsuit as a class action because it estimates that there are tens of thousands of persons who, like our clients, would be eligible to participate in the program but for their race. As U.S. Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts wrote in a 2007 case, the way to stop discrimination on the basis of race is to stop discriminating based on race. Evanston's program discriminates on the basis of race and is unconstitutional as a result. Judicial Watch's historic lawsuit not only seeks to stop Evanston's unconstitutional program, but also puts other cities, counties, and states considering reparations programs on notice that race-based programs will not go unchallenged in the courts, because no one is above the law.
Isn't that some great work by Judicial Watch? Not only the content of the video, but the legal action. I mean, it came as the result, after the lawsuit of significant legal work and investigation. I mean, these lawsuits just don't fall out of trees. It takes a lot of work to get them done. And now we're at the stage where the city of Evanston is trying to get the case dismissed using what I believe to be specious legal reasons that I'm not going to give the time of day here. And you lawyers can go look it up on our website if you want to figure out why our case should continue. But it's a straightforward case. We represent people who otherwise would be able to apply for the $25,000 cash payments, but for one reason, they're not Black. And why is it I have to explain why that's wrong? Why is it Judicial Watch has to explain why that's wrong in federal court? And so this is an important milestone, at least in this litigation. And the left has been watching our case very carefully because they're fearful of pursuing other reparations programs if they're going to get knocked out by the courts. And so they've been looking at this case carefully. And frankly, the fact this case is out there alone has stopped reparations programs from proceeding in most every other jurisdiction in which they're being considered. It should go, as I say in our release, it should go without saying that Evanston's reparations program is clearly discriminatory and unconstitutional, and our class action lawsuit should proceed. And of course, this isn't the only DEI, critical race theory, woke racist, woke discrimination litigation that we're pursuing. We've successfully battled this issue in court after court. One court we weren't successful, but we put it on the radar. In 2022, in August of 2022, for instance, we sued Minneapolis Public Schools on behalf of a Minneapolis taxpayer over a teacher's contract that provided discriminatory job protections to certain racial minorities. The Minnesota Supreme Court dismissed the lawsuit for lack of standing without deciding whether the racially discriminatory teacher's contract was unconstitutional. So the liberal Supreme Court shut it down based on standing. But you know what the contract did? You know what and it's still an operation in Minnesota or Minneapolis. It was a key aspect of the union contract the teachers union wanted. I think they were striking over it unless they got it. And what happens is, typically in public employee union contracts, there's job protections for people based on seniority. So normally people who, in a well-run, efficient, normal system or company or entity, if someone gets laid off, there's a position, you do it based on whether they're the best person for the employer and whether letting them go would be in the best interest of the company for whatever economic or other reason. And it's not based on seniority. You've been here for 20 years, but if you're doing a poor job, you're going to go out if there's layoffs. But in government, it's usually senior people are protected almost automatically, especially if there's a contract involved. So it's not unusual to have seniority protections when it comes to layoffs in public employee union contracts, however objectionable they are as a public policy. So that's what they had in this union contract. But on top of that, they had seniority protections unless you were white. So let's say you were the most senior white person for layoffs. They would skip, you weren't necessarily protected. The next person in line who was black would get protected. And when it came for hiring people back after layoffs, priorities were given to people based on race. Again, supposedly disadvantaged minorities. Completely racist. So you get senior protection from layoffs, seniority protection from layoffs in Minneapolis in the public employee teachers union contract. Unless you're white, you're skipped over. And then maybe after all the black colleagues of yours are protected, maybe then your seniority kicks in. Insanity. And so I hope the Justice Department takes a look at this because it's illegal. I mean, we tried to sue to stop it. The left-wing Supreme Court of Minnesota didn't want us to do it. They came up with a reason to kick our taxpayer client out of court. So hopefully there's some follow-up. But in Asheville, they had a scholarship fund that they were restricting to blacks only or minorities only. We sued, and they stopped it. They settled by stopping it. In California, they had quotas for members of corporations for certain public companies, and the boards would have to have certain quotas. There were 2 laws passed requiring quotas based on race, sex, LGBTQI standards, or whatever the current iteration was at the time. We had 2 court cases, and we won both, shutting down those race, sex, etc. quotas as being illegal under the California Constitution. Great victory there. And San Francisco had another literally crazy program that gave money only to black transgendered men. So men presenting themselves as women. I think that was the requirement. But anyway, it was based on race. Yeah. Only it was in favor of biological black and Latino males who identify as women. And so what we sued, and San Francisco just shut the program down and promised never to start it up again, and that's how the lawsuit settled. But just, we just have to be ever vigilant, because the left hates laws against race discrimination, because they see racial discrimination and division as a vehicle for destroying America. That's what it's about. That's what reparations are about, in my view. It's a way of redistributing wealth. It's warmed over Marxism, you name it. I can talk for a long time as to why reparations and left-wing woke discrimination are so dangerous to the American way. And Judicial Watch is in federal court, state court, you name it, defending the American way, which is that everyone should be treated based on the fact they're a citizen and equally, and not given special favors because of their race or other immutable characteristics. It's called equal protection of the law. The left opposes it. And if you don't have equal protection of the law, you might as well move to China or Russia. But that's what they want America to be. That's what they want America to be. So, hearing about their motion to dismiss next week, I don't know if the court's going to rule from the bench or wait to issue an opinion. Typically, from what I recall previously, this judge typically waits to issue an opinion. But it's going to be interesting next week to see the government come in, Evanston, to defend woke race discrimination. Specifically, woke race discrimination. That's the government policy in Evanston. In this day and age, they're discriminating nakedly on the basis of race. $25,000 payments to people who fit various categories. The number one category being black. It's completely outrageous. I dropped my thing here again. So, you know Mark Milley, right? Mark Milley is the former chief of staff for the military. And I think he engaged in treacherous behavior. I mean, there's been no doubt he called the Chinese during the end of the Trump administration to promise to warn them if Trump was going to do anything against them. I mean, that's complete treachery. And so we've been investigating that. He was talking to Nancy Pelosi. We have been investigating that, suing over that as well. And there's another thing we just sued over, too, as it relates to Milley, which is his conspiracy. And I think he's a seditionist. But he met with Garland, the Attorney General of the United States, to encourage the prosecution and the targeting of American citizens who are Trump supporters, and the targeting specifically of Donald Trump. So the next time you hear the left worry about the role of the military in deporting terrorists, illegal alien invaders, this same gang wanted the military involved in the targeting of American citizens for exercising their First Amendment rights. And how did we find out about this? It's not because Tom Fitton figured it out. It's not because Donald Trump figured it out. It's because it was reported by liberal reporter Bob Woodward. In a book released in October of last year, he wrote that in early 2021, Garland and Milley met for lunch at the Department of Justice. They discussed then former President Trump, and Milley pressed the Attorney General to investigate domestic threats and, quote, far-right militia groups. Woodward described the meeting as, quote, highly unusual, if not unprecedented. And what we did was we asked for records about this. I think we asked back in February about this meeting. Records and communications, including emails, email chains, email attachments, text messages, meeting minutes, Outlook calendars, voice recordings, video recordings, correspondence, statement, letters, memoranda, letters, reports, briefings, cables, presentations, notes, or other form of record regarding a meeting between Merrick Garland, Attorney General, Justice Department, and General Mark Alexander Milley, former Chairman, the Joint Chiefs of Staff concerning President or former President Donald J. Trump, domestic violent extremism, and far-right militia movement. So we want details on the meeting. And I read you the disclosure or the discussion of the detail of the request, because if you give them an inch, they'll take a yard, or a mile. What's the metaphor? If you don't ask for something in a way that is exact, they pretend, oh, we didn't know you wanted that. General Milley is a seditionist and abusing his office to target President Trump, and millions of Americans is par for the course from this guy. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth should order immediate transparency and the release of the documents about General Milley to Judicial Watch and the American people. Now, we already sued the Justice Department for these records. I don't think we've gotten anything yet. And in February of this year, we sued the Defense Department about information concerning 2 conference calls involving Milley with the Justice Department, Interior, and Homeland Security regarding coordination for the January 6th election certification. Remember, the military didn't want to follow Trump's request to have security at the Capitol on January 6th. That's one of the reasons we sued. And Judicial Watch sued the CIA way back when. I have to find out what happened to this. I don't think we got anything, of course, because it's the CIA. Because there was a meeting or calls between then CIA Director Gina Haspel and Milley. And the discussion was essentially, it looked like to at least one observer, as part of a coup against Trump. So Milley was at the center of a military, in part, insurrection against Trump. Was it violent? Did the fire include guns? No. But it included the political power of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which is significant. And as I've highlighted, because Milley, of course, was pardoned by President Biden. A pardon that I think is null and void, since it's not specific, mentions no crimes. So what was he pardoned for? And I think it should be treated as null and void, and any prosecution or court-martial should proceed accordingly. And he should be court-martialed, in my view. My colleague Chris Farrell, who you may have seen on our channel, he's head of our investigations department. He's a member of our board. He's a former Army counterintelligence officer. He authored a op-ed in the Washington Times, Why General Milley Should Be Court-Martialed. And he called it the most egregious example of treasonous subversion, what he did, by a commissioned officer since Benedict Arnold. So I encourage you to read that op-ed. I can't read it to you here completely. But he highlighted the record of court-martials for generals who did much less than what Milley did in terms of his vicious attacks on Trump and his efforts to undermine his presidency and his role as commander-in-chief. And this lawsuit is part of our effort to hold Milley accountable. And I'm hoping Pete Hegseth gets the documents to us as quickly as possible. So the media pretends to be outraged and surprised that President Trump declared a national emergency, deployed the military to protect our borders, secure our borders, and treat the invaders as, quote, invaders, quite literally. In the case of the Venezuela gang, that's been deemed alien enemies and that should be deported. And of course, it should be no surprise to any observer of what's been going on in the border for the last several years, the border invasion enabled by Trump, that the cartels and other foreign threats to the other foreign threat actors to the United States took advantage of. And Judicial Watch has been second to few in trying to uncover the full truth of what's been going on at the border, advocating for the rule of law when it comes to immigration enforcement. And we obtained, under the Freedom of Information Act, really quite extraordinary records from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection that show border agents seized drones transporting methamphetamine, heroin, and fentanyl across the United States southern and northern borders. So we were under attack. Our sovereignty was under attack via what I consider to be drone warfare. And the documents are worth reading because they're just astonishing in what was going on. And it shows the grave threat our country's been under while the Biden administration, well, actually the grave threat literally enabled by Joe Biden and his appointees. So we filed this request 2 years ago. So it took 2 years. And, you know, again, in an example, did the Biden administration just delay this until the Trump administration and it just magically appeared? I probably don't think so. I think the Trump administration, I hope, saw an opportunity for transparency here, but I don't know that for a fact. But they gave us the documents after 2 years, at least some of the documents, including a September 21st, 2022, a December, let me start over. The records include a September 21st, 2022 Customs and Border Protection significant incident report describing activity at the New York border with Canada. So on 9/21, agents of Redacted Station identified a DJI M300 drone originating in the United States, and that it had landed in Canada. The drone landed and spent approximately 10 minutes in Canada, then returned to the United States where agents were waiting and observed the drone and an attached package land in a backyard. Agents entered the property, encountered the drone pilot and an unknown number of additional subjects. At that time, all subjects fled the yard and entered the house. Agents in hot pursuit entered the house and took the pilot into custody. An unknown number of subjects absconded from the house into the surrounding neighborhood, and 2 additional subjects were later taken into custody. I mean, it sounds like some sort of movie or television crime drama. All subjects were identified as Chinese nationals. So there you have it. At this time, there is a potential to seize the house, 2 vehicles, the package of suspected narcotics, which are, I guess, also captured, several drones operating on our border, and associated hardware and an unknown quantity of cash. They tested property, so they field tested the drugs, and they tested positive for MDMA, about 6 pounds worth. So Chinese nationals operating drug flights on our northern border. What else were they doing? October 7th, 2021, evolving situation report on a drug seizure involving a drone or drones in California. At approximately 0840 hours, a drone made an incursion, and then they redact where the incursion exactly was, near a point of entry. Agents on the ground observed the drone drop a white package as it hovered over a parking lot west of the specific California point of entry. So an incursion. That sounds military-like, doesn't it? And it's appropriate to use that term. They seized the drone along with a small package filled with white powder. The 2 U.S. citizens were arrested in connection with the drone and transported. The white powder will be transported and to be identified by will be transported to some place that they don't say, and they plan to identify using it using a narcotics analyzer. And then indeed they did analyze it and found it was, again, methamphetamine. So why on earth would a country with the power of the United States allow that sort of activity on the border? And if you're a terrorist, you know what to do because you can see what's happening. And there's another report from back in 2020, so this was during the Trump administration, a significant incident report at approximately 17:05 hours. There was news of a downed drone containing possible narcotics. They seized the drone and transported the narcotics and began testing and fingerprinting to find out what was going on. Again, methamphetamine. May 7th, 2020. Another drone attack, as far as I'm concerned. Methamphetamine. June 26, 2020. Another drone captured. Narcotics captured. Doesn't say the specific narcotic. Methamphetamine. 2021, methamphetamine captured related to a drone. October 29th, 2021, this is 6.5 pounds of heroin attached to a drone from Mexico. Another incursion into California in September of 2021, originating from Mexico. 7 bricks of an unknown substance consistent with cocaine and 2 Tupperware containers of pills consistent with fentanyl were seized. It's pretty dramatic stuff. So we have evidence over the last several years of drones being used to attack our sovereignty, and it took the Trump administration being reelected, or President Trump being reelected, to have the military deployed to the border to guard against this. But the border is finally under control, in case you haven't noticed. The media won't tell you that, but the border is under control. Now, I'm hoping that means the drones aren't being launched anymore, but who knows? But this is something we should be pursuing, right? And I appreciate the transparency in getting these records out finally. These documents dramatically confirm that the Biden administration allowed the drug cartels, which the Trump administration has correctly identified as terrorist threats, to engage military-like drone campaigns against the United States from abroad. Chinese, the cartels, you name it. Now, Judicial Watch has been tracking all of this for years, and we first disclosed this issue in 2022, where we uncovered how Mexican drug cartels conducted more than 9,000 drone flights into the United States airspace in the previous year to surveil American law enforcement and security operations in the southern border region. 9,000 drone flights into the United States targeting our law enforcement. So the drone threat wasn't, you read about the drones being used in Ukraine, Russia. No, They were being used in our border, and we weren't doing anything about it. 9,000 drone flights. A senior Homeland Security official told Judicial Watch at the time, the drones are observing federal, state, county, and city agencies near the Mexican border, including the U.S. Border Patrol, Texas Department of Public Safety, Texas National Guard, county sheriffs, and local police. They captured about a dozen of the drones, accessed their guidance and memory systems to gain intelligence information about what they were doing, according to a high-level official at the agency. Judicial Watch learned about the Mexican cartel drone incursions during a visit to the southern border, and specifically while interviewing federal officials at the Customs and Border Protection Rio Grande Valley sector in Texas. Okay, so this is what I want you to take away from this segment. They've been using drones to bring drugs and it looks like maybe even people into the United States. Chinese nationals, the cartels, and Judicial Watch has previously uncovered that 9,000 drone flights took place to spy on American law enforcement, state, national, state, local, and federal law enforcement. And the feds knew about it and did virtually nothing. So much going on at Judicial Watch. Great news about the Ashli Babbitt settlement, which again, our lawsuit is settled in principle. The lawsuit filed against the U.S. government on behalf of Ashli's family over her wrongful death. So that it's expected to be finalized. We have these new major lawsuits for records about Milley and his seditious conspiracy against Trump and our constitutional republic. We've got a major federal lawsuit that's continuing with a major hearing next week or upcoming about reparations. And we just uncovered the drone, basically details of the drone invasion of the United States under the Biden administration. Just amazing work by the Judicial Watch team. And of course, as I said, we can't do it without you. And I want you to ask yourself, hey, why aren't I supporting Judicial Watch? Ask yourself, why aren't I supporting Judicial Watch, given all this work that Judicial Watch is doing? And I would encourage you to say, well, I don't have a good reason, and let me give a donation to Judicial Watch. Go to judicialwatch.org and make a donation in support of our cause. But in the least, share the information I'm sharing with you to your friends, your families, members of your church, your business associates. I don't know, maybe anyone you think would benefit from the important work and the important information we're uncovering on behalf of you, the American people. So God bless you, God bless America, and I'll see you here next time on the Judicial Watch Weekly Update. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.